during a global pandemic. Obviously, that's something that none of us have ever parented before through, so this is new to all of us. But I just thought I'd share a little bit about me, both personally and professionally, so you know a little bit about me. So my name's Jean Crane, and I am the parent of 4 kids. I have a son who's turning 17 on Saturday, and then a son who's 15, and a son who's 13, and a daughter who's 11. And so our life is busy and full of activities usually. And also professionally, I've been a licensed mental health counselor for the past 18 years and worked a lot with families over the years, down at St. Francis on the child and adolescent team for 14 years, and the past 4 here at Care to Change. So I have, I guess I would say, personal feelings for all the parents out there, because I know what it's like to be one. And so that's why we were talking about what are some ways that we can give information out and try to help in any way we possibly can during this time. We thought maybe just doing a little session on some ideas that we have about parenting might be helpful. So that's why we're doing what we're doing today. So again, why talk about parenting during this time? Well, I think parenting is hard enough when you're not going through a global pandemic, but this just takes it to a whole new level. We all know that change is hard, and it feels like just about everything has changed during this time. So when it comes to parenting, if any of us, which highly doubtful any of us had it all figured out, but if we did before, we probably don't know now because everything's changed so much. So I know for me, when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about the beginning of a school year when your kids go back to school, and all of a sudden for me, I was getting inundated with all this information with 4 kids and tons of different teachers and all the expectations. And I usually feel anxiety at the beginning of the year because it is like information overload, and I feel completely stressed out. And it just takes some time to get into a routine and to a schedule and to feel more like I'm solid. I think I understand what's happening this year. And of course it's always changing, so it's never perfect. But I think like that's kind of how we're all feeling, that this has changed everything. It's rocked everything about how we do school, about how we do work, about how we do relationships, how we do church. So we're kind of all just reeling and saying, how do we do this now? So if you're feeling that way, join me and the rest of the club of parents, I think, who are feeling that way. And then maybe today we can think of some ideas that could be helpful. I hope that some of these strategies are a little bit practical too, then maybe a couple of them you could put into place. And above all else, what I want to say to you today is have grace for yourself. Do not beat yourself up over parenting issues right now, but just have grace for yourself, because this is a hard time for all of us. So the other thing I think that's really made this an interesting and difficult time is that we're quarantined with our family. And that can be such a beautiful thing. It really brings out the best in families. That also can bring out some of the hardest parts of families. So I love when I'm working with my clients and talking with my friends about all the time that we have together. The time is beautiful to be able to play games and eat meals together and feel more relaxed and not as just rushed all the time and hurried. And that's the blessing of being quarantined with our family. But then the hard part, and I will say this personally, this isn't just from others' experience. I know in our home, we've had communication and conflict resolution problems because we're together 24/7 all the time, and all of that togetherness without anybody else can make it really hard. So I think everything's changed. We're all kind of reeling, and we're quarantined together constantly, and all of those factors can make it hard. So let's talk about some things that we can do, some specific things that we can do as parents, because we are all under stress. You think about, the other thing is too, like when you think about a firework on 4th of July, there's a wick, and that wick is usually pretty long, so you can go up there, you can light the bottom of the firework, and it takes a little time, so you can run out of the way before the thing explodes. Well, I think when we're under stress, that wick is greatly shortened. And if you think about it from just a how we manage relationships aspect, when the wick is short, we can explode so much easier because that stress causes it to feel like there's less time between something happening and me feeling really upset really quickly about things. So again, just as far as grace goes, like giving yourself that grace to know that when you're under stress, when literally we are dealing with life and death health situations, when so many of us know somebody who has gone through the virus or somebody who has passed away from this virus, these things are extremely stressful, let alone economic change and all of the other changes. So I just want to make that clear. So the number one thing that I want to say to all parents is take care of yourself first. And it's like when you get on the airplane and they say, you know, parents, before you put on the oxygen mask for your child, put it on for yourself first. You have to be able to be breathing in order to help your kids make sure that they're okay. And so the first 5 things I want to talk about taking care of yourself, there are also things that your whole family can do. So this isn't something that's just for parents, but it is for parents. Because if you don't have anything to give, then there's no way that you can do the job that you want to be doing as a parent. So 5 categories I think are really important for self-care. The first one is getting sleep. And again, with the changes, it can be easy to stay up super late, get sucked into things. You don't have to be up at 6:15 in the morning to make breakfast, to get your kids to school, all those things that we used to have to do. So it can be easy to stay up later at night. But sleep is so fundamental for emotional regulation and for being able to handle and manage stress. So both you as a parent, but also for your kids, finding some sort of sleeping schedule that is flexible. So it doesn't have to be super rigid, but is also, you know, that you're getting enough. And the beauty of the time too is that because you don't have to get up so early, then sometimes you might be able to sleep in more according to your own body clock. So trying to get to bed on time and a decent time, and then letting yourself sleep. Sleep is really important. Number 2 is exercise. And this is something we'll talk about a lot today, but these are things you can do as a family. But exercise has so many health benefits. I'm sure most of you have read and seen and experienced those benefits, but it's something that you need to do as a parent to make it a priority. And sometimes too, with more time, it's weird how time can just go. And instead of being proactive with time, we get reactive with time, even if it's watching Netflix and getting sucked into the next episode. But with exercise, I think it's so important. It's like putting it in as an appointment, just like you would if you're, you know, doing telehealth with your doctor, you know, putting that into your schedule and saying, we are going to do this and I'm going to do this as a parent. Third thing is nutrition. I think when I was growing up, we underestimated how important what we put in our body is for our functioning, both brain functioning and body functioning and emotional regulation. And so, so I grew up without thinking very much about it and kind of thinking that it wasn't a big deal. But as I've learned more as a therapist and worked with families, I've realized more and more how important what you put in your body to fuel it, how important that is, and how it makes a difference in all of those areas, brain, body, and emotional regulation. So making sure that you as a parent are being proactive and thinking about the things that can fuel your body in a good way. Again, to not have to feel like it's totally rigid, but to also be really thinking about that. So not going too long without eating, and the things that you're eating, making them be things that will help you, that will bring those nutrients that you need. The 4th thing is connecting with other people. It kind of feels like with COVID, that has been taken away from us. And it has, in the essence that I think that we are created to connect with people, but we still have technology just like we're doing right now. So just trying to take advantage of opportunities where you can, whether it's a Zoom call or FaceTime, or I was just driving past the nursing home on the way to my house, and I saw what looked like, you know, a daughter and her older mother, and there was a window in between them, but they were talking and smiling and laughing. And it's just like, man, we've got to be creative in these days on how we can connect, but don't give up doing that, because that's very important for feeling your best and being able to manage your stress. And lastly, and not least, is connecting with God. If your faith is important to you and you have a relationship with God, just talking to him about these things, knowing that he cares about you. And I think of this verse that I love. It's just very simple. Cast your cares upon God because he cares for you. And just knowing that there's someone that's bigger than you that cares about what you're going through as a parent and is there for you and wants to hear from you. And he's never too busy. He wants you to talk to him about things small and big, even if it's about how do I possibly get my kids to sleep so I can take a nap. He wants to be there for you for all of those things. So, all right. So then let's talk about, after thinking about how do you take care of yourself as a parent, incorporating those things, but then also, your kids being able to do those 5 areas too. The next thing that I think is really important that I've talked with different clients about, I think it's interesting, but staying in tune with your kids. So there have been losses for your kids. Obviously, not being able to go to school. They never probably would have thought that was a loss before, but they realized suddenly that school is actually amazing because you get to see your friends and it's not just sitting in front of a computer all the time and all of that. So they have losses for sure. But it's really important to be attuned, but not overly attuned. And what I mean by that is I'm 44 years old. So I'm thinking about the world from a 44-year-old perspective. But kids are really resilient. And so you want to make sure you're checking in with them about the things that they're sad about and what they're disappointed about and their losses. But you also don't want to be projecting the things that you think they might be in despair about or really disappointed about, but just really checking in with them. Because if you're worried about all the things that you as an older person can see, it might be much more than what they're thinking about. So, checking in with them. I was talking to someone today and I loved her small group. They just gave this out as an idea that every day they check in with their kids and they ask them, like, what's one thing that's been really hard about today? And then the second question, which is kind of getting their brains back to thinking in that positive light, is what's something that happened today that probably never would have happened if it wasn't for the coronavirus? Like maybe eating breakfast together as a family or staying up until 10:30 watching a movie on a Tuesday night, which usually would have to be saved for a Friday or Saturday. So I love those 2 questions because you're really trying to stay in tune with your kids and where they're coming from, but at the same time also trying to help them to think in that positive manner. So giving credence to both the disappointments, but also the good things. I also think it's important to balance how your kids are getting information about COVID. So being careful, thinking really carefully about how this information is being given to them. So if the TV is on it all the time and it's on a news station, then it's just going to be a constant bombardment. And that can be just really too much for anyone, including adults, just to constantly be hearing about the next thing, the numbers, the statistics, and all of that. So you definitely want to be talking to your kids about this, but not have them be inundated by tons of different information sources. So I think it's a good thing every couple of days to just check in with them and ask, how are you doing? How are you feeling about Corona? What are your questions? What are your thoughts? Do you need to talk about it? And letting them determine where they're at and what they need. You as their parent, you know them really well. You know them best. So you're going to know the right questions to ask, but just checking in so that they know they have a safe place where they can talk about these things. One of my colleagues here at Care to Change gave me a really great suggestion. I love this. So there was a family where the wife was diagnosed with coronavirus and they had younger kids. And when you're younger, it's really hard to understand what do these statistics mean? When I hear about death, does that mean my mom is going to pass away from this? And so the father did an illustration using pennies. And what he did, he took the statistics from the CDC and he got a big pan full of pennies and he put 1 penny in for every 1,000 people. So the people in the age group that their mother was, there was a bunch of pennies of people who had been diagnosed with corona. And then there's like a little bit of a smaller bowl, and that next bowl was people who had been hospitalized in her age group from corona. And there was less pennies, but some pennies still in there. And then a smaller bowl, and that was those who had been admitted to ICU. And there was some pennies left in that. And then the very smallest bowl at the very top was those people in the age group who had passed away because of Corona, and there was just only 3 pennies in that one. And so it was a good visual illustration for kids to be able to see that this, they aren't going to understand statistics, but they can understand a volume of pennies, and to see that does not mean that if your mom has Corona, that she is definitely going to pass away from it. And that had been their fear before, but when they saw that in the different bowls, they could visualize that this doesn't necessarily mean something as terrifying as definitely, passing away. So I think that there's some creative ways to communicate even with younger kids about this, especially if they have someone close to them who has been diagnosed with it, a grandparent or a parent or anyone in their life. Second thing I want to say to you guys and to us as parents, and a reminder to myself too, is that attitudes are contagious. So if you think about it, if you think about what is the attitude that you want for your children to be able to have about this? Do you want them to feel safe and to feel that they're, like they can trust what's going on right now and they're okay, they're going to be okay? And obviously, like, there's no guarantees in all of this, but if you want them to feel at peace and kind of trusting, and especially like trusting their faith in God, then that's the attitude that is really important for you to role model. And we do get to choose our attitudes. We do not necessarily choose the first thought that comes into our head. Those things come in, we're getting inundated with information. We are all going to experience periods of feeling anxious and feeling upset and feeling other emotions. I think now it's even coming up, there are many parents who are starting to feel angry about the economy and the loss of work and some of those things. So these attitudes, the first thought can come into our mind, but we have to be really proactive and careful about what we choose to do with it. So we can choose to have an attitude of trust, an attitude of peace. And it's important for us, even as parents, to talk to people who are safe in our lives, or other adults or our support systems, but then to give to our kids that attitude that we choose, so that they're going to get that. They're going to just see it. They're going to see it role modeled, and it's going to be much easier for them to choose that attitude if they see their parents modeling that attitude. So thinking about that, how can you be proactive about choosing the attitude that you want your kids to have? And this is a good life lesson too, because we do know that in life, there are hard things that come up. And it's really not about the circumstances that happen to us in life. It's really about the attitude that we choose to have about those circumstances. So if they can learn that now, what a great thing for them for their future. I also think it's really important for families to be able to still laugh and have fun together, and find some things that they can enjoy despite some of the hard news that keeps coming our way. So just being able to play games together. And one of the things that I think has been really funny for our family, and again, I have middle school and high school students, so they're at an age group where they're going to understand skits a little bit more, but like some of those funny skits on YouTube and some of the comedians about having Zoom conversations and how things just go really badly, or how you only get to see someone's half a face, or how people are dressed up on top and not on the bottom. So that's been funny. Watching things like Dude Perfect, they're still having fun. I think they have the quarantine classic or something that they just put out. I also have a client who, she recruited her daughter to help her with this. She has a daughter who's old enough to drive, and they went around on Easter, and she dressed up in this Easter bunny outfit from head to toe, so she wouldn't be giving out any, concerning viruses or anything, but she would just go, her daughter would drop her off, she would run into the yard, drop off a little Easter basket, and then dance around on the yard. And somebody took a video of it and posted it. It was just so funny. It just really, brought joy just to see somebody out there in this Easter bunny outfit, especially because I knew that she was 50 years old. So it's just really cute that she was doing that. So thinking about ways to still have fun and help your kids to have fun, I think, is really important too. And a couple more things. One is fighting battles worth fighting at home. So I've heard this from so many different teachers and also from parents, that if for right now the e-learning part is really difficult, that you give yourself grace and give your kids grace. Somebody just mentioned this to me today, and I totally agree with it. If you think about the month of May in school, this is a month where kids are getting really antsy and everybody's just ready to be done, ready to have summer. So we're usually gearing up for field day and doing fun dissections, and teachers are having classes outside sometimes, and there's more activity and more fun happening. So if that's happening at your house right now and e-learning isn't super rigorous, I just want to say to you, maybe that's the month of May and maybe that's what it's supposed to be. And it's okay to let yourself off the hook a little bit with that. And the other nice thing about having a flexible day is that if a kid works best in the afternoon and not as much in the morning, a lot of times they can do that. Or if they work best taking a lot of breaks during the day. One of my clients who's in high school told me today that she wakes up, she does yoga. The next thing she does, she starts on her homework. Then she goes for a run. Then she works on her work again. Then she does a volleyball workout. Then she works on her work again. And I thought that was just super cute that she was layering it with things that she likes to do, and especially exercise, because of course that's a good way to spend your time and get your brain back to functioning and focusing. So fighting battles worth fighting. Most it's in your house and maybe things are not as clean as you're used to them being. For me, having all 6 of us around in our house when most of the time, my husband was at work, I was at work, my kids were at school, things didn't get quite as messy, especially in the kitchen. We definitely didn't use the dishwasher as much as we do now. So just thinking about how can you be flexible and take a deep breath and just fight the battles worth fighting, enjoy the moment and be present with your kids, even if it looks a little more cluttered than you're used to. Maybe making the most of that and just letting some things go. Also, creating a flexible routine. A lot of people are talking about this, and it's kind of back to what I was talking about at the beginning, that when you start school out and everything feels new, it feels you don't know what to expect, and that's why I think some of that anxiety comes along. So if you have somewhat of a flexible routine, so kind of what to expect, the families that I see that are doing the best with managing all of this change are the ones who have come up with a routine. So, we do families that try to eat breakfast together, and then they know where's your spot in the house where you're doing your e-learning, and each person kind of has their place. And for families with younger kids, this is when dad helps you with reading, and this is when I help you with math. And so kids kind of know what to expect. And this is a time when you just have a break and you can just eat lunch, or you can watch a video or do something fun. But just giving kids a sense of expectation, especially when they're younger, a sense of what to expect, and keeping things on somewhat of a good routine. I know a lot of high school students, a lot of them are telling me that they are actually doing their best work late at night, at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. And so in this season, if that's the case, maybe it's not so bad. Maybe it's okay for them to be doing that. If that's when their best work is coming out, again, that's maybe not a battle worth fighting, and maybe a good schedule for them to anticipate using. Also, staying connected, and we kind of already talked about this before, but what are some specific ways that you guys as a family, both your kids and the parents, can stay connected with other people that they love? I've seen a lot of students who are writing notes to their teachers and posting them or dropping them by their house. I know that really makes their teacher's day. And it's probably fun for their kids. A lot of parents are helping their kids do art projects and coloring projects. So why not use that for something good? Send it to the neighbor, send it to someone who's elderly, who can't get out as much, or send it to your staff at your church, or the staff at the Y that you work at. But just figuring out ways to stay connected and to keep reaching out and to care about other people and looking outward. I think that the more that we look outward and we think about ways to serve and to give and to encourage other people, then the less we're focused on the inward things, the anxiety, the stress, even the frustrations that could be coming. And so that's a great thing for you and your family to work on together. I wanted to just talk a little bit real quick about 3 different areas. One is working for parents who are having children who are younger. So babies, toddlers, pre-K, kindergarten, younger elementary school. What are a few different things they can do? Second one is parents of middle school and high school like I am. And then thirdly, parents of college students who they never thought they would be spending this semester with their college students. So let's talk really quick about if you have younger kids. So what are some important things to do? And I know my heart goes out for you. A lot of you are managing full-time homeschooling that you never thought you would be doing because you weren't a homeschooling parent and potentially working, or even for those moms who have been stay-at-home moms who have been able to drop their kids off at school and then do all of the activities, the things, the errands, the cleaning, the cooking, all of the things that they usually do so that when their kids get home, they're able to focus. Now we're having to share time on all of these things. So for you who have younger kids, I know that this is really hard because they require constant attention and making sure that they're doing okay. So here's a couple things. One is blasting music and having fun together. So music is so good for us. It's so good for our soul. So how can you put some music on and have fun as a family? Just belt it out, dance, have fun. Make PE an academic priority. So I know that in school, it's one of the specials, but if you make it at your house an academic priority, meaning that you get out and you do fun stuff, you think about ways for them to get their energy out, making obstacle courses, playing tag with them. I know sometimes if I'm like, well, I really need to get a workout in today, but I have a lot going on. At least when my kids were younger, I used to just go out and play tag with them because believe me, it's a workout. You are tired when you're done. Wrestling in the living room. I think it's so great when I used to come home and I would see my husband with all three boys hanging off different appendages and they were all laughing and wrestling and having fun. So even if you're stuck inside on a rainy day like today, finding ways to get that energy out. You can even do circuits with them or yoga. Kids, actually, a lot of kids are doing it with their parents right now and they're actually enjoying it. And yoga is such a good way to bring relaxation and to feel like you're being present. So keeping busy with them. The other thing we've already kind of talked about, but setting up a schedule with them so that they know when they can get help for the certain e-learning activities that they're going to need constant supervision for. And then what are the things that they can do on their own? And this is across the board, both with little kids and middle school, elementary. I think it's a great activity for parents to make a huge list of every last brainstorming fun idea or activity that they can do and just put it down on a list so that when your kid comes to you and says, I'm bored, you can say like, well, go check out the list. Why don't you look at, something on there and go try it? And we're talking about everything from artistic creations to cooking to exercise stuff, just anything and everything that you can brainstorm so that there's a list somewhere. You don't have to generate that list in the middle of maybe you're trying to do work and your kids are saying they're bored and it's like managing that together. So do that list at a time when you're not really stressed and you have a lot of creative energy. You can look stuff up online. There's a lot of ideas out there, but having that list ready so that they can go and check it and think about, try to find something on that list that's kind of fun that they could try to do. So that's with little kids. Second bucket I want to talk to is parents who have middle school and high school students. So that would be me. Number one thing I think is really important is to be careful about their screen time. We're always talking about this anyway, so it's not like this is new, but because of so much time on our hands and because it's hard to figure out what are some creative ideas to do when we feel really stuck, screen can become the thing that they go to because it's right there, it's right in their hands. On a little bit of a good news front, I've been talking with teenagers who are my clients, and I think it's really funny. One of them actually said to me, like, you never thought you would get sick of your phone, but I'm sick of my phone. So maybe, just maybe, again, this is another benefit that they're getting sick of being on their screens, and they might just be more open to other things, but just still trying to keep that in mind and making sure that that's not the majority of what they're spending their time doing, because we do know that especially social media and gaming and some of those things can be correlated with increasing feelings of depression and anxiety. So helping them with that. for our family, we're really blessed because we've been able to play a lot of sports together. But within those sports, we have to be really careful about being overly competitive because we're playing against each other all the time and nobody else is in the equation. So I think being careful about that, like how can you make sure that you're keeping short accounts and making sure that you're talking through things if people are getting frustrated, and quickly asking for forgiveness, apologizing, figuring out that conflict resolution process that works, so that resentment and anger and frustration isn't getting built up without it being resolved. I also think it's great time for you to affirm and encourage your middle schoolers and high schoolers. You don't get to see them as much as you do now usually. And so even just things like, man, you're really good at math. I never even knew how good you were at math, or what a creative idea that you had in your room on this DIY project that you put up on your wall, or just anything and everything. Like, thanks for helping me with dinner tonight. It was really fun for us to cook it together. So finding ways to affirm and encourage. If you even put it in your mind to think of what is one thing that I can say that's positive to my kids, any age, but every single day, if I find one thing positive, and that's good because it kind of gets that filter in your mind going of looking for good things. And sometimes as parents, we accidentally get caught up in looking at the black dot on the white piece of paper. And what I mean by that is the white piece of paper is all the good things, all the meeting expectations that they do. And the black dot is the 1 or 2 or 5 things that they're not doing, that they're not meeting. And then we hone in on those things. So I want us to all as parents be encouraged to think about what are the areas of white, what are those affirming things that we can say to them that help them realize that we see, we notice, and we like who they are and who they're turning out to be, because your words really can impact them. I also think it's good for you to help them create space for them to have some alone time if they need it. So just telling them, look, if you've had too much sibling time or whatever and you need some alone time, let's figure it out. Or even one-on-one time with you as a parent. Maybe it's just having a picnic with one of your kids on the back porch, or maybe it's making a new snack and sitting out front together. Hopefully the weather continues to get better and better, and there's a space for you to go for a walk or do something one-on-one. But it's that one-on-one time that we sometimes get into those deeper conversations where we really get to know our kids. So thinking about ways that you might be able to do this during this time when we have a little bit more time on our hands. And I think Pinterest and DIY projects right now are great. It's a really great way for kids to use their creativity. A lot of my high school clients are redecorating their rooms, and they're painting, and they're just thinking about ways to reorganize their furniture, anything like that. So helping them to get creative. Lastly, for those of you who might have college students who have returned home unexpectedly and are staying with you for the rest of the semester, I know for many of my mom friends who have college students home, they're so happy that they're getting to spend this time with their college students, but they're also aware that it's not the same. They're adults now. And for college students, they're also trying to keep a good attitude about it, but so much has changed for them. They went from being around their friends 24/7, living in a dorm or a co-op or a house with kids their own age constantly, to being quarantined with just their family. And sometimes it's just their parents because maybe their older siblings have gone, or their only child. And so it's just a really different environment. And they've gone from freedom to what feels like restriction. So the changes are pretty dramatic for these college students. So I just think a couple things that they can really benefit from. One is empathy, that you try to put yourself in their shoes and try to talk to them about this, and just to say to them, man, this must be hard. Talk to me about it. Like, I want to hear and I want to care about it. So showing them that empathy. And then secondly, flexibility. So finding ways to be flexible with them about the fact that these things have changed. So I guess this has gone on for a pretty long time, but I will end with this. For everyone, the things that we talked about at the beginning, taking good care of yourself. For everyone, being able to just show yourself grace, to be able to just take some deep breaths and just try to be present and look for the joy, look for the good things, find the things to be grateful for, find the things that we're blessed by. We want you to know here at Care to Change, if you're struggling in any way as a parent right now, we are here for you. If you need to make an appointment, we are available. We have options for you. Just if you just even need to make like one appointment just to talk through, here's what's going on, just give me some specific suggestions, help me to work through this, help me to figure this out. We want to be there to help you. We want this to be a time when families can grow in their connection. So hopefully some of this was helpful for you, and please be in touch with us if there's anything that we can do, anything that we, a need that we can meet for you. Thanks.